we had a special recipe for that show where it's like
I thought you meant literally.
we had a special recipe.
We used to cook
one part hair,
apple crumble every day.
No.
How are you doing? How's it all? How long have you been out?
I'm good. We've been out since the beginning of the year, really. We went to Australia and did this thing called Laneway Festival where you play all the major cities in Australia. And then came back to the States and rehearsed a bunch and worked on the new album songs. And yeah, went to the West Coast, kind of making our way around everywhere and living on a bus.
Shows are feeling good, and
yeah, it's nice. We're in a little bit of a groove now. I've never toured long enough to really get into any sort of groove. It's always been a couple of off shows here or there. And when you're, playing consistently, it's really fun to feel like you're really improving, and it's really fun to just be playing music all the time.
Yeah.
Also, I find myself after shows really kind of inspired and just fiddling around on guitar, and it's just great. And around so many, great writers too and friends. So it's been a great time. Yeah.
You're going to keep playing music, man. This is, there's no way. They're never going to act again. This is going to be it. You're going to get the bug. It's going to be over.
We'll see. I don't know.
Am I right on the disguise thing, that the reason you wore the disguise, the wig and glasses, was to sort of separate the emerging celebrityness or the actoriness from the musician? Is that right?
Pretty much. It was pretty much just to deflect from people being like, "Hey, Steve," at a show, or just maybe looking at the album cover. It was to, try to have some sort of separation between the two, so that somebody who wasn't a fan could just discover the music and listen to it without any preconceived idea of who did it or anything, just to have a clean slate, I guess, was the idea.
It's interesting to me that that's what you want. I mean, I would imagine I would speak to people who any road in would be enough. You know what I mean? Like,
I completely understand.
I'll leverage anything I got to get people to hear these songs.
I think probably that's the smarter thing to do, to be honest. But it just felt like the right thing to do. And I'm a big fan of Andy Kaufman, and there was a certain
Tony Clifton.
There's a certain that sort of element to it. And when we did these shows, like you said, we all dressed up as this guy, as the character. And so that was just another layer of just kind of deception and trying to maybe throw people off. And I come from like a theater background too. There's like a theatrical absurdity to the whole thing. I love those sort of musical artists too, David Bowie. I mean, people who kind of have an element of something that's shocks you a little bit out of your normal life too. So yeah.
It's funny, I thought about Tony Clifton when I was watching the videos getting ready for this.
Tony Clifton.
I did. For people who don't know, Andy Kaufman, one of the greatest comedians and like abstract, experimental, early, like maybe the first ever alternative comedian.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe Albert Brooks or Andy Kaufman. We had an alter ego. He dressed up as this guidance lounge singer named Tony Clifton, and you never knew whether sometimes they'd be on the same show at the same time.
And he would terrorize people, kind of. And also, he had a friend. I forget his friend's name.
Who
would also dress up as Tony Clifton sometimes.
Bob something. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly, which is amazing because it kind of like, eventually people were like, okay, that's Andy Kaufman. But then when they started employing that part of the gag, and they were in the same place at the same time, it became even more confusing. So I loved that.
How is being on stage? No,
it's different. That was a learning curve for sure. I feel like that I've been working up till this point to kind of, because there is a little bit of a performance element too. To anybody, you kind of, I don't know.
Oh my God, you're not the same person on stage that you are when you're here.
I
don't even know if you're the same guy here that you are. You know what I mean? Like, of course.
But it's hard to kind of like make that distinction, I guess, unless you're in it, unless you're doing it. So there's been a little bit of a learning curve, but.
What's hard about it?
I think just like the confidence sometimes. Like you have to be the ringleader of this experience, and you don't feel the same every single day. And personally, you don't want to like fall into the tropes of like, what's up, Toronto?
Yeah.
Like doing something that doesn't feel true to you. But I think there always is like a way where you can kind of, lean more into yourself and still kind of be elevated or something, not exactly who you are.
It's funny because my question was going to be, is it harder because you have to, like when you're hiding behind a mask, sorry, not that you were hiding behind a mask.
Well, essentially.
But when you are literally hiding behind a mask, you don't have to offer anything of yourself.
No.
You know, and these songs are not vulnerable songs.
Exactly. So I think leaning into the fact that the new music feels maybe a little bit more, you know, exposed is helping, I think. But I also think that like a part of the, you know, wearing this wig and the shades is like there's like a layer between you and other people.
Yeah.
Where it's fun to have that layer of mystery. But I also think like a lesson from End of Beginning is like through the exposure of I'm not really talking about the song, I just mean through like the lyrical exposure, you're also inviting people in a little bit more, and there's like maybe a deeper possibility to connect. And so that's kind of the trade-off maybe that I've found is like the more that you are yourself and the more that you can bring yourself to something, maybe the deeper that people can actually go with the stuff.
Yeah, it is the trade-off.
Yeah.
Can I play the big hit?
Sure, play the big hit.
Let's do it.
Just trust me, you'll be fine. And when I'm back in Chicago, I feel it. Another version of me, I was in it. I wave goodbye to the end of beginning.
That is Joe with End of Beginning. So just for people who don't know, that song came out in 2022. It blew up last year thanks to TikTok. It now has over 1.5 billion streams on Spotify. It's been the soundtrack to millions of TikToks. It was one of the most streamed, top 10 most streamed songs in the world.
I've heard you tell me you still seem in disbelief of that.
It's insane. Yeah, it is insane. It's fully crazy.
I was trying to find out like what is the turning point where you knew that it had taken off, and I heard you say that like, hey, I was at a show and a bunch of people were singing it back to me, and that was sort of when I knew it. What show was that?
That was in Australia. That was very crazy for sure. Because we're also playing with these in-ears. You know, everybody plays with in-ears these days.
In-ear monitors, so you can't really hear the crowd. You can only hear.
Well,
the
sometimes
other band.
depending on like what you want for your mix. But the show before. Adam, my longtime collaborator and pal, was like, you should take your ear out just to hear, because people are really, oh, really? Pop the ear out, and it was like, oh my God. There's a fair amount of people singing back. But also this was happening, I recorded an album with Post Animal, the band who's opening for these shows, and good friends. We share, you know, some of the members are in both of these bands. And we were working on an album in like rural Indiana last March, I guess it would have been. And every day Adam would kind of text me and be like, hey, the songs, we're like, hit a bump, you know, it's doing really well. And then be like, oh, that's cool. A couple of days would go by, be like, it's really doing pretty well. You should really check it out. And so every day I would get a little bit of an update from him. But I was so removed. We were like working on other music. So it was kind of like the perfect way to have it happen, where it was like, I was really focused on something else. And then when we came back from the woods, it was like, oh my God, overnight, somehow this song is being used for all these videos. Just, you know, random.
What's that feeling?
Just like, why? I wonder why. You know, obviously the song had been out, but it just is like, I guess that's the way that the music business works now. And with TikTok, it's like if something kind of like catches a wave and is in the right, you know, place at the right time, it can sort of just surf this huge thing. So I think that's what happened. It was just like the perfect circumstances for the song to do well, and then it did well.
I think it probably had something to do with the quality of the song itself.
Well, I think so too. It's like getting an acting job. I feel the same way about like getting Stranger Things. It's like I was, you know, working really hard, and I was in the right place at the right time and did the right thing, and you know, was able to perform the right thing or whatever that they wanted. So it's just like this confluence of a bunch of different things all coming together, and, you know.
It must have been nice that people, from what I understand, and when I first heard the song, I didn't know it was the Stranger Things guy.
Yeah, that's great.
And most people didn't know that. That must have been a relief.
That's great. It's kind of like my whole, you know, idea of like having the little sunglasses and the wig thing kind of worked, which was great. It was really nice that people were able to listen to it without that. And now the cat's kind of out of the bag, and it's sort of like, okay, well, let's maybe put that to the side and put this next record out, and yeah. this is me.
You strike me as somebody who does care about art a lot, or it cares about somewhat integrity within their art a lot, or you wouldn't have been wearing a mask, or you would have said, "Hey, I'm a famous guy. Listen to my songs." Like there's something there. You know, you mentioned the people. You mentioned David Bowie. These were people who all were very thoughtful about art. I bet when that song took off, you had a few people saying, "Hey, let's leverage this. Let's lean into this a little bit."
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And, I think for like the longevity of your own music career, sometimes there are certain opportunities where like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it is important to like pick and choose the things that you do. But I don't know. I guess at the end of the day, I do want to continue to make art. And there is a balance between art and commerce, I guess, that you have to sort of like always ride the line of, I've done like acting commercials and stuff and things that like in retrospect maybe like, would I do that again? I don't know. But it afforded me time to be able to do this or that, I guess. So that's...
I mean, I think what I'm referring to is that you probably could have released another TikTok-y single right away, or you probably could have, I don't know, there could have been a McDonald's meal deal called the Joe
maybe,
end
but
of beginning burger. You know what I mean?
I guess I don't really know what I did initially that like made that thing, and I'm also really not interested in like doing the same thing twice. I really am like, we did that. That was really fun. Let's try to do something different now.
Do you learn anything about your songwriting from the success of that song when it comes time to write songs again?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, before the song did well, I feel like the process of working on that song and then a song that didn't make it onto that album was like that was like a melody and chords on my phone. I had demoed it like an electric guitar unplugged outside, whatever. It's just a simple thing. It was like, we need one more song for this album. Do I have any ideas? Okay, let's look through this. What is this? No, that's not good. What's it? Okay, let's go with this one. And so we built it in the studio. We did like guitar, bass, drums. Let's like just build it. And the process of doing that was insanely fun and addicting because it wasn't like we're recreating a song that I had made on the computer and all these, I'm not like making this music in this DAW. We were three friends making music in a room. And so that process I totally took to this new record, and I feel like that's why it sounds like, it was made in a studio and it was just made in a different way. Like the process was totally different. I'm very big on like, let's come up with like the guidelines or like the process of the thing and then see how it unfolds. So it did have an effect on it.
Yeah, it's meant to be a record. A record of something. A record of a time people were in a room together
exactly.
doing something. Yeah, it's literally called a record.
Exactly. Instead of like Decide is a great record, but it was just the way that we did it was like very online.
Yeah. Cardigans just appeared in our bodies, by the way. And our hair turned gray.
Yes.
Mine turned grayer.
And
we started talking. Up next, we're going to talk about Spotify. No, let's listen to a song from the record.
And something dominates me, holds my hand to the fire. Young man versus another kind. Every single step that you take is just another one back. Another step to take back. Another regret. You're just gonna let fear take that. 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 Back in the show.
That's Joe with Egg from his new album, The Crux. Joe Keery is my guest. I'm Tom Power. You're listening to Q.
I like the song a lot.
I like the song a lot. Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah. It was that little Wurlitzer. Boop, 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 boop. Came up with that and had that laying around and kind of knew the gist of, the kind of hits that I wanted to employ in this track. And I didn't quite know what the idea for the song would be.
Lyrically, you mean?
Yeah, so me and Adam, who I spoke about earlier.
Yeah, your collaborator and buddy. And
and then Wes, who plays drums in the band, we demoed a version of this whole song and then listened to it, took it around, kind of wear headphones, walk around, sing to yourself kind of is the way that I do it. Kind of refigured the verses. The verses weren't working, so we kind of did something different. And, there was this one didn't totally like right away come together, but it's one that once the pieces were all in place, especially lyrically, it was like the whole thing sort of happened all at once.
What do you hear lyrically when you listen to it now?
For me, it's just like like a song about letting fear dominate your decision making and trying to break free from that. The image of, I don't like really, I guess I kind of sing about it, but like the image of like Plato's cave is like something to me that is like an image that I think of when I listen back to the song. It's not something I'm directly singing about, but somebody who's like, yeah, doesn't even know that they're kind of restricting or limiting themselves.
Fear in as much as you want to say here, fear in your own life, fear dominating your own life.
Oh yeah. Like letting it just just being afraid to do something and not doing it, you know? And why live your life that way? Why do I, like a reflection, I guess, on that. Why do I allow myself to do this? You know, why can't I just break free from this?
What I find interesting is that I think that I would talk to people who would say like, if I got a big hit song, then I wouldn't be afraid anymore, or I wouldn't have any doubts about myself anymore. Or I would talk to people who would say, if I got on a big TV show, or I got in a big movie, you know, that would give me the validation I need and remove all doubts and remove all fear.
No, that never goes away. No, the doubts and like the...
You know what I mean, right? Like there's that expectation.
But
right?
it doesn't matter, honestly. None of that matters because it's always like the same struggles. No matter what you achieve, I feel you're always still dealing with the same demons, and you're always still fighting the same fight, I guess, that you're always doing. Like, I still want to be taken seriously as an artist. I still want to put out things that I'm proud of. I still want to, you know, live my life to its full potential. I still I don't want to be afraid socially. I don't know. It's like a big pot, I guess, and working through and lyrics and writing these songs is like a way to just like stir it up and not like fix the problem, but to like vomit some of the problem out.
Yeah.
And like hear it back.
Yeah.
The way that you know.
They say about poetry, and therefore lyrics, that, because I think in the early days of this show, I would talk to people and say things like, you know, did writing about fear or writing about insecurity help fix the problem? And I got enough answers to that I started to think that sometimes the tension is the answer. You know what I mean? Like the space, but the not having any answers is the answer. How do I put that?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, like the idea of like, did putting it out there help you solve it? No, but it put it out there in a way that I could look at it.
Yeah, and just the process of writing it also is a way to like recognize that, oh, this is something that's maybe going on, I guess. And yeah, there's also like this also maybe sounds pretty heady, but there's like morality. There's like a little bit of like struggle with what's it mean to like be a good person, and what's it mean to like be somebody who's like seeking, I don't know, validation through music or art or whatever. And is that a bad thing? You know, is what I'm doing any good at all for anyone other than me?
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that in there. Like, I've definitely thought about that. Like, you know, there are people out there who are cleaning the oceans.
Yeah.
There are people who are researching, you know, cures for cancer. Like, is this really just one big selfish, you know, pursuit that I'm doing? And how do you kind of like reckon also with that, you know? And I have my own answers, I guess, for myself about that, but it does take some convincing sometimes.
That's the eightfold. It's part of the eightfold path, the Buddhist eightfold path.
I don't know anything about the Buddhist eightfold path.
The Buddha said that one of the things the Buddha said was, funny, I mentioned the New Testament to Nick Cave, and now I'm talking about the Buddha with Joe Keery. Essentially like, hey, life is suffering, life is wanting, life is desiring. We can get rid of suffering. We can get rid of desiring if you follow the steps on this path. And one of the steps is right intention. So that would be like trying to be acknowledgement of fear. And the other one is actually right. One of the other ones is right livelihood. Is what I'm doing benefiting society? So or benefiting the world? I would argue the answer to that for you is yes. But what you're struggling with is something that people have been struggling with for probably 2,600 years.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, you're on the right track.
That's good to know.
Can we listen to another song I liked on the record?
Please.
And then I'll tell you about another sacred text.
Sick.
Welcome to the Ecumenical Hour with Father Tom.
Every Sunday.
I mean it back on you.
I like this tune a lot. I like the choir off the top of it, dude. This is the tune with the choir off the top
Yeah,
of it,
this
right?
is, yeah. This is the first song that we started. I started by myself a little bit. We had come off some other shows, and I had started, like, I just got to, like, prove to myself that I'm good enough to, like, write anything on my own. Can I do it? We'll see. And this was one of the first ideas.
What's it about?
It's about my sisters.
Hey.
It's about my friends. It's about being there for people, and about It's about being there for people who have been there for you, I guess, at its deepest. And I went through something in my own life, and I had a great friend who said, like, dude, what you're going through, it sucks. And I had a friend who was there for me, and just basically told me, at any point, you can just lean on me, and you can just, whatever you need, don't worry about it. Don't think like, oh, it's late at night, I can't reach out to this person. Like, I'll be your lifeline during this experience in your life. And that had like a real deep and profound effect on me. Just like that act of, selflessness and caring and like true love, really. And so to be able to, and it's inspiring to be able to do that for other people as well, to be able to say, this person's like really going through it. Here's my opportunity to like do that for someone else and like pass that along. And hopefully they'll do it for someone else too. So I guess it's just about like that. And I think mixed with the influences that I was kind of going for this song, that like kind of like sort of like hockey stadium rock and roll.
Yeah.
To me is like very like, yes, like let's go. Like, let's do that, which is kind of
about friendship.
Yeah, which is kind of funny because like those songs are not really about that. But I kind of like being able to take this, maybe the costume of this song and then put something underneath it where I actually really feel like this way about that, about friendship and about like kind of the people in my life. And it's not like usually like a song that's a love song is kind of like maybe a ballad or something like that. And it's kind of fun to have like it is really like a love song, but it's like yes.
Yeah.
Like, let's go.
Yeah.
Like a pump up song. So
It feels intentional. It feels intentional that you're singing about love here. It feels intentional, there's a lot of fellas who wouldn't do it. There's a lot of fellas out there these days who don't want to sing about love or don't want to think about love for their friends and their sisters.
And that, I also like that. It's not a love song. I have written plenty of love songs about, romantic love songs, but it's also really nice to have like a song that's like an ode to your friends and to your family too. So this one's been really fun to play, and the choir, the experience of working with this choir was something I always wanted to do, and it felt like kind of a nice way to sort of maybe like set the stage in the song, and just kind of like, I'm a big fan of when things kind of just like go like this and smash together, and it's that is the case, I feel like, on this song. It's not,
your sister's on it too, right? Your sisters are on it?
Yeah, they're on this whole record. My two youngest sisters, and then my two other sisters are both on this song as well. And the way that came about was me and Adam were pretty inspired by Dan Nigro, a lot of his productions.
The guy who produced the Chapel record.
Exactly,
the
and
Olivia Rodrigo record.
Yeah, he's done a bunch. And they use a lot of gang vocals on all their stuff.
Yeah.
And Adam thought we should try that because I feel like generally it's me doing all the background vocals, and we were like, okay. And I had just moved to New York, and so the two people I really knew in New York at that time were my two sisters, my youngest two sisters, Kate and Emma. And they're twins, and they have this amazing, harmony between the two of them, just as people, but then also their voices too, and then us as siblings. So brought them in, and we ended up using them all over the record. Yeah, they're doing a bunch of stuff all over. So it's.
Do they know the song is kind of about them?
They do now, but as when we were working on it, they didn't quite know. We punched in for the verses, and then kind of when the song was all done, I shared it with them, and it was nice. Had a good cry between us.
That's
yeah.
It's
great.
Man, it's nice to see you offering that much of yourself to everybody, man. To be honest,
it's great.
Like I said, like this is a time when fellas are angry and close up and,
Yeah,
are mad on the internet,
I mean, listen, there's a lot that's bad right now in the world, and there's a lot that's going wrong, it feels like. I feel it too, but it felt like I didn't want to like indulge that feeling. I'd rather, like, what better reason to have like a piece of art than to make it an ode to the people that you love and to make it something that's kind of like positive. That's also been something to, one of the reasons I really love Paul McCartney is I feel like he's got so much joy in a lot of his music.
Yeah.
And there's so much like uplifting energy. So, and I feel I'm not too much of a downer person.
You seem like a pretty pleasant dude to me.
Pretty positive guy. So I think it's important to bring some of that to the world too.
Can I ask you the Stranger Things questions I wanted to ask you?
Please, yeah.
That's a huge chapter of your life that's come to a close. Stranger Things was in production for a decade. Disorienting when you wrapped? Did you have enough notice that you were able to come to some sense of peace with it?
Yeah. It was so we worked for basically all of last year, starting in January, ending in December, really. And so it's a daunting year of work for everyone. I mean, crew probably most of all, because as the cast, we're coming in and out, obviously. We're spoiled. But it's a lot of work. It's a ton of work. And so it doesn't really dawn on you until maybe the last week of work that it's your last week of work forever, Yeah, it was just very special for me personally. I have a really deep connection with these people, and it just felt like in the last week, it went like and got even deeper.
Yeah.
And
how was afterwards?
Well, it was just like Christmas. It was kind of funny. We were working, and then had this big emotional kind of ending, and then everyone went away to Christmas. And, I've seen people here and there, but there was a little bit of like a shell shock of like, wow, that sort of is over. And for me, it was pretty nice to be able to jump into this music, and I'm like a total workaholic. I love to have a project. I love it. So I dove right into this project, which has been great for me. But yeah, I'm sure it'll dawn on me also, later, once the show does come out, to the effect at which it had. And yeah, it's been like a third of my life. So, but what an experience. I feel so grateful, man. Yeah, that's been a big part of putting out this record. Finishing up the show is just like, oh my God, you move any little piece of my life around, or anything is different, and my life would have been totally different. I was talking to my friend Matt. If we hadn't worked at the same restaurant, I would have never met these guys in Post Animal, never made this kind of music. He did the tape for Stranger Things with me. I would have never done this Stranger Things tape with him. I don't know. Would it have been different if I had a different guy filming? I like to think it probably would be. So it's like,
had Netflix not picked it up, a million
had
things
this,
not happened,
or had I not gone to school in Chicago, had I never moved, blah blah blah. It's just like sometimes the like enormity of all of those what ifs can be like, oh my goodness, and make you very grateful. And that line of thinking also always just leads me back to the thought of like, I gotta be so thankful for the way that this all worked out, because it's been so amazing.
But that's not where you gotta go. Some people go to, well, yeah, I created it. Like I go to like, yeah, all that stuff. Well, yeah, I created that. Was the gratitude you're talking about there something you were taught by your family, or is it something that you had to learn over time?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, my family has had a massive impact on me, and I do think both my parents are just like, they both have a real moral code and a sense of like being kind to people and like a duty to your community and stuff. In terms of, so I do think they like taught me gratitude, and I think if I had a different family, it would have been a different situation. But yeah, hard to say. I guess hard to say.
That's beautiful, man. It really is.
It's great. I mean, yeah, I have a very close relationship with my family.
Give me something. I'm gonna then ask what you're not going to miss. Give me something you miss about playing Steve Harrington.
Oh man, just being a part of like a team. I think it's like we had a special recipe for that show where it's like
I thought you meant literally.
we had a special recipe.
We used to cook
one part hair,
apple crumble every day.
No, it's like you're a part. You get the every great show, MASH or Cheers
Yeah.
or Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Everybody like knows their role and the dance that you're doing and the tone, which is so important. And it'll be sad not to do that again, like to work with Gayton. Like we just had this thing where he could read my mind, and sometimes I could and we would do these takes, and it would end, and I'd be like, wow, that was like that was so much fun to work with this kid. And so I'll miss that. That's what I'll miss the most of all, is like feeling like a part of something.
Not miss?
What I won't miss,
Now this is a dangerous, because this goes against the gratitude thing a little bit. But
a
I'm sure
little
there's
bit.
something.
I mean, I think it's difficult to be at the whim of a larger schedule. I think everybody on the show would say that. It can be difficult when, there is a little bit of a sacrifice that you have to make when you get a call and you have to say, I'm sorry, you can't go to your little niece's wedding. We're shifting because it's raining. That, would be a bummer sometimes, but those are the moments where you have to be like, chill out, don't worry. It's like, think about how lucky you are, Think about what you get to do.
Think about
It's insane.
think about what you get to do. I think overall is the thing that I'm taking from this full conversation, because
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of delineation made between you being an actor and he's also a musician, but it just seems like you're just doing things that interest you and making art that interests you. And one of the things I was going to ask you about, is it a hobby, versus a thing? But it just feels like it's coming out of you.
It's all kind of a hobby. I mean, acting is a hobby until it wasn't. It's like I was just going to theater school or doing the plays or, and then one thing leads to another. All of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm making money doing this. I can like support myself. And the same thing with music. It's just, something, it's just a great way for me to work through things that are going on in my own life, I guess. And like, I love songwriting. I'm like a songwriting enthusiast. It's like fun to listen to a song and think about, how'd they do this? Or, and I'm not like a trained musician necessarily, so I feel like that makes it even more fun. It's like I have no idea. And I can have these friends in my life kind of help me and explain to me what's going on and learn myself. And I think like I went to a Montessori school as a little kid. I think that maybe had a fair amount to do with it. That's all about like, just self-motivating your learning. And if you're interested in something, following it and doing it. So yeah.
I think you work in an industry that doesn't reward artfulness, and you made a really great artful record.
Thank you. I hope to do it again. I hope to try and make another one. That's what I'm hoping to do.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
Joy to talk to you.
Likewise. Yeah.